Worth, Mr. Cade. You're doing the right thing." Rowan hung up. But doing the right thing didn't feel like victory. It felt like cleaning up a mess he should have prevented. Do you think people ever truly change after they hurt someone? Vara sat across from Rowan in a cold interrogation room that smelled like disinfectant and regret. Her hands rested flat on the metal table. Calm, composed, like she'd rehearsed this exact moment in her head 1,000 times. Detective Jenkins stood in the corner, arms crossed. 2 other officers flanked the door, but Rowan had insisted on being here, on looking her in the eye one last time. "You asked to see me," Vera said. "So here I am?" Rowan didn't move. "I need to understand why." "Why what?" "Why you let him suffer." Vara tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle she'd already solved. "You really don't see it, do you?" "See what?" "That you were suffering long before Ari ever did. That you built this perfect life and convinced yourself it meant something. That you think being a billionaire makes you better than people like me." Rowan's voice stayed level. "This has nothing to do with money." "It has everything to do with money." Vara leaned forward. "You think you earned your wealth, but you didn't. You exploited systems designed to keep people like me at the bottom while people like you rise, and then you hire us to raise your children because you're too busy maintaining the empire you built on our backs." "So you punished my son for that?" Vara's smile faded. "I didn't punish him. I taught him." "Taught him what?" "That pain is real. That suffering exists. That no amount of money can shield you from the things that actually matter." Rowan's hands curled into fists under the table. "He's 5 years old. And he'll remember this for the rest of his life. Just like I remember being 5 and watching my mother work 3 jobs while billionaires like you bought 3rd homes." Detective Jenkins stepped forward. "Miss Lindsay, you're aware this conversation is being recorded?" Vera didn't break eye contact with Rowan. "I'm aware, and I don't care. Because he knows I'm right. He knows he failed that boy long before I ever did." Rowan stood slowly. "You're wrong about one thing." "What's that?" "I did fail him. You're right about that. But I'm still here. I'm still fighting. I'm still trying to fix what I broke." He leaned down, voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "You just wanted to watch him hurt. And that's the difference between us." Vara's smile returned. "Is it? Or are you just trying to convince yourself you're the hero in this story?" Rowan straightened. "I don't need to be the hero. I just need to be his father." He walked to the door, paused, turned back one last time. "You said I'd never understand suffering. But I do now. Because watching my son go through what you put him through taught me more than any business deal ever could." Vara's expression didn't change. "Then I guess I did you a favor." Rowan left without another word. In the hallway, Detective Jenkins caught up to him. "She just confessed on tape. Motive, intent, everything we need." Rowan nodded but didn't feel relief. Just exhaustion. The kind that settles into bones and doesn't leave. "Mr. Cade," Jenkins said carefully, "she was trying to get in your head. Make you doubt yourself. Don't let her. She didn't have to. I already doubt myself every day." He walked out of the precinct and into the night. The city moved around him like it always did. Indifferent. Relentless. Alive. His phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Moss. "Ari's asking when you're coming back." Rowan got in his car and drove straight to the clinic. When he walked into Ari's room, his son was awake, bandages still wrapped around his head, eyes heavy with medication. "Dad?" Rowan sat on the edge of the bed. "I'm here, buddy." "Is she gone?" "Yeah, she's gone." Ari nodded slowly, then asked the question Rowan had been dreading. "Why didn't you see it?" Rowan's throat tightened. "Because I wasn't paying attention, and that's on me. Not you. Never you. Ari's eyes filled with tears. I thought maybe I was making it up. That's what she said, that I was just being weak. Rowan pulled his son into a careful hug, mindful of the bandages. You're the strongest person I know. And I'm sorry I didn't see that sooner. They sat like that for a long time. Father and son, both learning how to rebuild trust from the ground up. Outside the room, Mirai and Chennai sat in the waiting area. Chennai squeezed her daughter's hand. You did good, baby. Mirai watched through the window as Rowan held his son. I just hope he listens now. He will, Chennai said. People don't forget lessons like this. But Mirai wasn't so sure, because she'd seen enough adults make promises they couldn't keep. Seen enough kids get hurt by people who were supposed to protect them. She just hoped Rowan Cade was different. And somewhere across the city, in a cold cell that smelled like concrete and failure, Vara Lindsay sat alone, smiling to herself. Because even in losing, she'd made her point. Do you think justice is enough to heal the damage some people cause? Chapter 9. Rowan stood in his penthouse, staring at the empty space where Vara used to organize Ari's daily schedule. 3 weeks had passed since her arrest. 3 weeks of medical treatments, therapy sessions, and late-night conversations with a son who was learning to trust again. But today felt different, heavier. Because today, Rowan had a question he'd been avoiding. He turned to Mirai, who sat on the couch with Chennai, both of them visiting for what had become a weekly check-in. Ari played quietly nearby with building blocks, his head healing but still tender. Can I ask you something? Rowan said to Mirai. She looked up. Yeah? How did you know what to look for? When you saw Ari that first day in the garage. Mirai thought about it. I didn't know what to look for. I just noticed what he was doing. But 17 doctors looked at him. How did you see what they missed? Mirai set down the juice box she'd been holding. Because they were looking for what they expected to find. I was just looking at him. The words hit Rowan like a punch. Simple. Obvious. Devastating. What do you mean? He asked. Adults look for patterns that make sense to them. Kids just look at what's actually there. Rowan lowered himself into a chair across from her. So, you're saying I missed it because I was looking for the wrong thing? No. You missed it because you weren't looking at all. Chennai gasped softly. Mirai, but Rowan held up a hand. No. Let her finish. Mirai hesitated, then continued. You were looking at doctors and tests and appointments, but you weren't looking at him, at how he moved, how he touched his head, how he got quiet when people asked questions. And you did. Yeah, because that's how my cousin acted when she had lice. And nobody believed her either until someone actually checked. Rowan leaned back, processing. So the answer was always simple. I just made it complicated. Kind of, Mirai said. But also, Vara made it hard on purpose. She wanted you to miss it. Why? Mirai shrugged. Maybe she was mad at you. Maybe she wanted to prove you weren't as smart as you thought. I don't know. But she definitely didn't want Ari to get better. Ari looked up from his blocks. She said Dad didn't deserve me. The room went silent. Rowan's voice came out rough. When did she say that? A lot. When you weren't home. She said rich people don't deserve good things because they take them from everyone else. Rowan's hands tightened on the armrests. And you believed her? Ari's eyes dropped. Sometimes. Rowan stood, crossed the room, and knelt beside his son. Ari, look at me. The boy did, slowly. You deserve every good thing in this world. Not because of money, not because of who I am, but because you're kind and brave and you tried to tell people you were hurting even when they didn't listen. That takes courage most adults don't have. Ari's lip trembled. But what if she was right? What if I only got help because we're rich? Mirai spoke up before Rowan could answer. You got help because I was there. And I'm not rich. So that's not why. Ari looked at her. Then why did you help me? Because you needed it. That's it. Ari nodded slowly, like he was trying to believe it. Rowan stood and walked back to the window. The city stretched out below, indifferent as always. But something had shifted. Not in the world. In him. He turned back to Mirai. I owe you more than I can repay, but I want to try. Mirai shook her head. You don't owe me anything. Yes, I do. Because you saw my son when I didn't. And that's something I'll carry for the rest of my life. Chennai spoke quietly. Mr. Cade, you don't have to. I'm funding Mirai's education. All of it. Elementary through college. Whatever she wants to study. Chennai's eyes went wide. Sir, that's too much. It's not enough, but it's a start. Mirai looked at her mother, then at Rowan. Why? Because people like you see things people like me miss, and the world needs more people like you. Mirai didn't smile. She just nodded, like she understood that gifts this big came with weight, with expectation, with responsibility. But she also understood something Rowan was just learning, that seeing people clearly was the most valuable skill anyone could have, and money couldn't buy it. Power couldn't demand it. You either had it or you didn't. Mirai had it. Rowan didn't. But maybe by watching her, he could learn. People don't hide pain in their faces. They hide it in the things they repeat. Do you believe that? Ari smiled for the first time in 6 months. Not a forced smile, not a polite smile. A real one. The kind that reached his eyes and made his whole face light up. He stood in the penthouse living room, bandages finally removed, hair growing back in patches, and showed his father a drawing he'd made in art therapy. It was a picture of 2 people. One tall, one small, both holding hands. That's us, Ari said. Rowan knelt down, studying the drawing like it was the most important document he'd ever seen. It's perfect. Dr. Ellis says I should draw what makes me happy. This makes me happy. Rowan pulled his son into a hug. Careful, gentle, like holding something precious he'd almost lost. 3 months had passed since Vara's arrest. She'd been charged with criminal neglect and endangerment. Trial was set for next spring. Rowan didn't care about the outcome anymore. He just cared that she'd never get near another child. But more importantly, he'd changed everything about how he lived. Fewer meetings, more dinners at home, daily check-ins with Ari that weren't rushed or distracted. He'd hired a new care specialist, but this time he was present, watching, learning, paying attention to the small things he'd missed before, and he'd stayed in touch with Mirai. Weekly visits that had become something neither of them expected. Friendship, maybe, or mentorship running both directions, because Mirai taught him as much as he taught her. Today, she sat at the dining table with Chennai, both of them visiting for lunch. Ari ran over, showing Mirai his drawing. Look what I made. Mirai studied it. That's really good. You even got the shadows right. Ari beamed. Dr. Ellis says I'm getting better at showing feelings through art. That's because you're brave enough to feel them now, Mirai said. Ari nodded seriously, then ran off to draw something else. Rowan sat down across from Mirai and Chennai. He's doing better. Finally, Chennai smiled. Children heal fast when they feel safe. I almost took that safety away from him, Rowan said quietly. By not seeing what was right in front of me. Mirai looked at him. But you see it now, because you taught me how. I didn't teach you anything. I just showed you what was already there. Rowan leaned back. That's exactly what teaching is. They ate lunch together. Simple food, easy conversation. The kind of normal Rowan had spent years avoiding because he thought it wasn't productive enough, wasn't efficient enough, wasn't worth his time. but now he understood. This was the only thing worth his time. After lunch, Rowan walked Mirai and Chennai to the elevator. Before the doors closed, he stopped Mirai. "I need to ask you one more thing." "Okay. Do you think Ari will be okay? Long term?" Mirai thought about it. "I think he'll remember what happened, but I also think he'll remember that you showed up, even when it was hard, and that matters more." The elevator doors closed. Rowan stood alone in the hallway, processing those words. Then he walked back to the living room where Ari sat surrounded by drawings, markers scattered everywhere, completely absorbed in creating something new. Rowan sat down beside him. "What are you drawing now?" "A girl who saved someone." "Yeah? Who'd she save?" Ari looked up. "Everyone." Rowan smiled. Because his son was right. Mirai hadn't just saved Ari. She'd saved Rowan too. Saved him from a life where success meant everything and presence meant nothing, where power mattered more than awareness, where being right mattered more than being there. She'd saved him from himself. And for the first time in his life, Rowan Cade understood what wealth really meant. Not the number in his bank account, not the buildings with his name on them, not the empire he'd built, but the moment his son smiled and meant it. The moment trust rebuilt itself one conversation at a time. The moment he realized that the most important things in life couldn't be bought or scheduled or optimized. They could only be noticed, nurtured, protected. And sometimes it took a little girl from Washington Heights to show a billionaire what mattered most. Ari finished his drawing and held it up. "This one's for Mirai." Rowan looked at the picture. A girl with bright eyes and a big smile, standing in front of a city that looked just like New York. Strong, brave, unshakable. "She'll love it," Rowan said. Ari nodded, then went back to drawing, and Rowan just watched, really watched. The way his son's hands moved, the way his face concentrated, the way he was healing, slowly but surely, because someone had finally paid attention. And Rowan promised himself he'd never stop paying attention again. Because heroes don't always come from power. Sometimes they come from overlooked neighborhoods, from people society undervalues, from children who see what adults miss. And if you're lucky enough to meet one, you don't waste the lesson they teach you. You carry it forward. You protect it. You make sure their courage meant something. That's what Rowan would do. For Ari, for Mirai, for every child who'd ever been dismissed or ignored or told their pain wasn't real. He'd listen. He'd see. He'd show up. Because that's what real wealth looked like. And it had nothing to do with money. If this story touched you, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the powerful true stories we share every week. These are the stories that remind us what really matters. Stories that inspire change. Stories that prove one person's courage can save a life. Don't let these messages pass you by. Hit that subscribe button now, because the next story might be the one that changes everything for you. See you in the next